Right,
Just saying.
Well, no, I think they're pretty strong, even though they decoupled, did the lead singer, with Gwyneth Paltrow. 3 minutes now after the hour. Let's bring in Florida Senator Marco Rubio now, who's running for president. Senator Rubio, welcome back.
Good morning.
Senator Rubio, I don't think I have to tell you that happening over the Middle East in these war zones. Saudi Arabia and Iran is melting down. So is the Shia and Sunni religion. Russia's aggression, ISIS proliferation. Afghanistan is seemed to be in worse condition now than it was 15 years ago. If you are looking for someone with experience to handle this, isn't the word experience best associated with Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, but experience of doing the wrong things. Hillary Clinton is the architect of leading from behind. And that's what's led to this mess. You know, first of all, we have a president who believes that America is an arrogant global power that needs to be cut down to size. That's how you get a foreign policy where we betray our allies and we cut deals with our enemies and we weaken the U.S. military. And the president apologizes, especially in the Middle East, for the United States of America, at least on 10 separate occasions. So that's where you get a Saudi Arabia, which is a military ally of the United States, feeling vulnerable. Because we cut a deal with Iran that is their Shia enemy and their mortal enemy, really, in many cases with regards to this. You have the U.S. leading from behind, getting out of Iraq too early, leaving a space for ISIS to fill in. Same thing now happening in Afghanistan. And Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State over much of these decisions, when these decisions were being made. Both she and President Obama are a complete and total disaster on their foreign policy.
Senator, how vulnerable is Hillary Clinton? You know, for the most part, it's hard to ask her a question that she will answer at some of these events that she's at. Once again, I think it was yesterday, they were restricting reporters' access to her. It's hard to ask those questions, though, and call her on her record.
Right. So, but I'll do that. I can't wait to run against her in a general election. I know she doesn't want to run against me. That's why they keep attacking me every day. But I can't wait for that election. We're going to talk about how she used her email server irresponsibly and recklessly, thereby putting American information potentially in the hands of our enemies. We're going to talk about how she lied about Benghazi. She was telling the families of those victims that this was just a video, that this was because of a video, but she her family and other people that this was a terrorist attack. So she lied about Benghazi. And then this fundamental question: what part of the world today is America stronger or safer after Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and Barack Obama was president? The answer is there is no such place.
And that brings up the very valid concern and question that the American people are asking is, what is our role in the world? Add to the laundry list of things going on right now, the Middle East on the brink of chaos, and now Iran and North Korea moving ahead with their nuclear ambitions, and China in meltdown mode, and our stock market selling off. I mean, you could just keep going on and on. What is our role in the world today?
Our role in the world is to be the strongest country on the planet, both militarily and economically, as well as diplomatically, and to protect our national security interests. So when there is chaos in the Middle East is filled by radical jihadists. And the number one target of radical jihadist groups is America and America's interests. So Al-Qaeda had a safe haven in Afghanistan, and they attacked us on 9/11. ISIS now has a safe haven in Syria, in Libya, in Iraq, growing in Afghanistan, and they're using it to recruit fighters to one day enter the United States and attack us here in our homeland. So we have a vested interest in these issues. These are not just civil wars halfway around the world. They are places where radical jihadist movements who want to kill Americans are organizing. And this president does not have a plan to deal with it. He has zero plans to deal with it.
People that have a chance to talk to you and watch in the debates know that foreign policy is one of your strengths. But also people look at you and say, okay, he may know it, but what has he done? What do you say to people who say Marco Rubio hasn't done anything?
Well, I've done more on foreign policy than any of the other people running as president of the United States, that's for sure. Just 2 weeks ago, for example, on a bipartisan basis, I passed additional sanctions against Hezbollah. I've dealt with human rights violators in Venezuela and imposed sanctions on them. And as a member of the Foreign Relations and Intelligence committees in the Senate, I repeatedly warned about all these things you're seeing now around the world. I've been talking them for 4 years. I warned about what would happen in Libya. I warned about what would happen in Syria. I'm warning now about ISIS growing in Afghanistan. You know, I've been talking consistently about North Korea and Iran and the nuclear threat they pose to this country and the need to rebuild our military. So the bottom line is, when it comes to the presidency of the United States, there is no one running on the Republican side who has more experience or shown better judgment on these issues than I have.
Well, Senator, you were taking a shot a moment ago at the President of the United States and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. You're also taking some shots at your fellow Republican rivals, according to Chris Christie. A couple of days ago, he said this. He was very self-righteous about you. He was very self-righteous on the stage in the debate a few months ago when Jeb criticized him. He said, just because we're running for the same office, someone has convinced you that being critical of me helps you. And now all of a sudden he's being very critical of me. So I guess the same person who was talking to Jeb has been talking to Marco. How do you respond to the New Jersey governor?
Yeah, it's not personal. This is not personal attacks. These are policy differences. I just honestly don't believe that the next president of the United States and the Republican nominee should be someone like Chris Christie, who supports Common Core, who has personally donated Planned Parenthood, who got into politics to begin with in order to pass gun control, who has seen his state downgraded 6-7 times since he took over as governor in their credit rating. You know, I just don't think that someone with that record and with those positions should be the Republican nominee. Our next president needs to be someone who, from their very first day in office, is going to get rid of every single unconstitutional and unwise thing that Barack Obama has done, not someone that agrees with some of those things. When I become president of the United States, on my first day in office, every single one of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders will be repealed on that first day.
Senator,
and we will move from there to rebuild this country from this disaster.
You just mentioned Chris Christie and gun control. I heard him say yesterday, I believe up in New Hampshire, that over the years he's changed his mind. Isn't it okay to change your mind?
It is, but sure, welcome to the Second Amendment supporter club, I suppose. But bottom line is, what is your record on this issue? Can you be trusted in the long term on an issue that you only changed your position on when you decided to run for president? The Second Amendment is under assault. The damage this president is doing to our Second Amendment rights is extensive. This latest executive order, he is obsessed with undermining the Second Amendment. Our president has to be someone who is a consistent, long-time defender of our Second Amendment rights, not someone with a questionable record on it. And that's what I'm pointing to, policy differences. It's not personal.
Right. Senator, I tell you, looking at these state by state, you're always in the top 3, but you don't win anywhere. Where are you going to win?
Well, we're going to try to win everywhere we run. I mean, we try to do as well as we can in every state. And, you know, I know polls are important at this stage because it determines who's on the stage for the debates and it gives people something to point to. But if you've spent any time in early states like Iowa and in New Hampshire, you realize that voters there take this very seriously. They are making up their minds now as we speak. And they oftentimes don't make a firm commitment until the very end of the process. They want to see everything, including the next 2 debates and so forth. We feel very confident about where we're going to be when the votes count.
Senator, we've got to get to the really, really important subject of talking to you about your boots, but 2 seconds. We've seen the stock market selling off the most we've ever seen in history in the first week of the year.
Yeah.
You say you would be a good president for our economy. What would you do? I mean, it appears that we're so tied in with China that their meltdown there is affecting us so much here. Why is our stock market selling off like this?
Well, first, the president doesn't run the economy. The private sector is in charge of the economy. The job of a president is simply to support policies that allow the private sector to succeed. You know, China has some significant problems. They have no transparency in their markets. They've covered every bubble with a new bubble. They're just trying to goose up exports now to get their growth rate back to where it was projected. The best thing we can do about it is America. Make America stronger, fully utilize our energy resources, make sure we reform our tax code so we stop losing business and employment because of our taxes, regulatory reform. We need to make ourselves stronger. That's the best way to protect ourselves from global instability.
Okay, Sandra just mentioned Bugatti. It seems like everybody's talking about your shiny black boots, pictured right there with the pumped-up heels. Everybody's talking about that. But you know what? We really like your new ad. We're going to play a little bit of that for folks. Watch this.
What's your fantasy football team name?
This year, I think we're going to call it the Marco Polos.
More nervous before first presidential debate or first college football game?
I was more nervous before my first college football game because you were actually going to get hit.
Best coaching advice you ever gave your youth team?
Have fun.
Most important preparation for a big game or big speech?
Make sure that there's water nearby. Like right now.
It's a funny ad.
Yeah, it's going to run on some of the football games that are running. Just another way to keep people interested. But in the end, we're focused on the big issues before our country. But football's pretty big this weekend.
It's nice to see you let loose a little bit, Senator. But were you letting loose in those boots in the?
Oh yeah, were you wearing the boots?
No, not that day. I don't think I had them yet. I like them. We'll see. Listen,
Okay.
they may make a comeback at some point. They're for special occasions.
Yeah, they've taken on a life of their own. Senator Marco Rubio, I know it's going to be a sprint to Iowa, and we've got a debate in between. Thanks so much for your quality time.
Thank
See you in
you.
Charleston next week.
That's right.